Good Shabbos, Good Yom Tif, Chag Sameach, Shabbat Shalom. Believe it or not, acknowledge it or not, this new year, 5781, gives us the most insight, the greatest understanding we've ever had of what Rosh Hashana is about, what being a Jew is about. Tiku b'chodesh shofar, we'll say in our Friday night prayers, and we'll say it again in the Kiddush of both days, Rosh Hashana. Sound the shofar at the new moon. B'kesa leyom chagenu, on our holiday when it is hidden. Ki chok liYisrael hu mishpat lelokei Yaakov, because it's a statute for Israel, a judgment for the God of Yaakov. The word b'kesa, hiddenness, or in a state of concealment, tells us to attune our souls for something unique and special on this New Year holiday. For the other beginnings of the other 11 months in the Hebrew calendar, we mark them in very clear and distinct ways. If you came to Shul, or in these recent crazy months when you had no Shul, if you listened to the drasha before Shabbat, you heard us announce when the new moon would appear in Yerushalayim, the eternal and undivided capital of Israel. We would do that in the Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh so that you knew what was coming that week, which days of the week would be Rosh Chodesh. Some people mark that Shabbos. We do it by writing Shabbos Mevarchim on the bulletin, Shabbat of blessing, because we say a special bracha, special blessing for the new month, that Shabbat before. Some people say extra psalms that Shabbos. For the 6 months on Rosh Chodesh, we've said Hallel together by Zoom. Okay, not the greatest invention of mankind, but it certainly got us through the summer with a lot of our sanity intact. Not all of it, but some of it, a lot of it. We sang Hallel together. There's a special Musaf for Rosh Chodesh, which is different than the other Musafim, and so on. Sometimes, like Rosh Chodesh Elul, a few weeks ago, it was a 2-day Rosh Chodesh. So we did all this 2 days in a row. In other words, we made a big deal out of Rosh Chodesh. One line of reasoning was that it has to do with being Jewish, for all its spirituality, is very much tied to the real, the practical, the observable world around us. What do we praise God for every single evening of our lives? We say in our Ma'ariv prayer, in the evening prayers, Meshane itim u'machalifes azmanim. We say in Ma'ariv, God changes the times and rotates the season. We say Golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. God rolls away the light of day before the darkness of night, and after night rolls back the darkness to allow the light of day to shine. We don't want to take any of that for granted. We recognize that there is a creator and a mover behind it all. We strive to see blessings in the most simple and obvious of things. We also see ourselves reflected in that like the moon, which sometimes grows larger and brighter, and other times decreases before our eyes to the vanishing point. So we compare the Jewish people to the moon. We also wax and wane. But we know that even when we seem to be on the verge of disappearing, it won't be long before we appear and begin to increase in strength and brightness. That's a theme of Birkat HaLevana, Kiddush Levana, the bracha for the new moon that we'll say Motzai Yom Kippur. So Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of a Jewish month, is a big deal, usually, not now. Now, Rosh Chodesh, now, the fact is, Rosh Chodesh itself is B'kesa. Yes, the moon is hidden before its reappearance. We know that it's there, even if we can't see it. But Rosh Chodesh also, the beginning of the Jewish month, is B'kesa. The very fact that it is Rosh Chodesh goes completely without mention in this whole 8 days from last Shabbos, which should have been Shabbos Mevarchim. We should have blessed the new month. And these 2 days of Rosh Hashana, which are also Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. But that fact will be completely concealed because, other than this talk that you're listening to now, we won't mention that. We will not mention that fact at all in the course of our prayers. Not last Shabbos, not this Shabbos, not in Musaf, not at all. What is this telling us? We like to pay attention to what we can observe, what we can measure, what we can count, chart, predict, analyze, from the weather to the stock market to the commodities prices to the government budgets, gas prices, and most everything else in our world. We like to know how much, when, what rate of change, what's the trend, where are we in the curve, where were we last year over year at this time, what's the projection for next fiscal year. There's nothing like driving at night and hearing the report on 680 News that gas prices are going to go up at midnight. It's not enough in the morning I go, oh, my goodness, gas went up 3 cents a liter. Thanks to this, I can even go to bed at night thinking, oh my goodness, they're going to raise the price of gas 3 cents tomorrow, as if any of it matters. There are a lot of times when we're close to spot on in our predictions, and sometimes we're laughably wrong, because we didn't take into account that which actually happened and threw off all our predictions. Someone who does forecasting for business consulting told me recently that they stopped forecasting for the long term because they acknowledged that there are too many factors that simply make it impossible to forecast long term with any kind of reliability or credibility. There's a time and a place for all that, measuring and observing the world, acknowledging as we do that there is a great deal that's predictable and observable, and we ought to be thankful and mindful of that also. That is concretized in the 11 out of 12 months that we do celebrate and observe and sing and daven on Rosh Chodesh, because our calendar is tied to the way God created and organized the universe and the seasons and the days and the month. And we take those phenomena and we thank God for giving us so much that we can count on, and we don't take it for granted. For one Rosh Chodesh out of the year, we don't do that. One Rosh Chodesh a year, all that is covered over, concealed. We don't even talk about it. We say Bakesa to acknowledge that it's concealed. And of course, by Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan, a month from now, we'll be right back in business. But this new moon is concealed because we're focused on something else. We're focused on what we cannot see, what we do not know, what we cannot observe or measure. What has this meant for us? Most years, it's encouraged us to think about the soul, our neshama, the spirit, with the simple and unadorned sound of the shofar. We know that we reach a part of ourselves that's often concealed even from us, the essence of our souls, the innermost part of who we are. I came across a very moving story about Rav Kook, the first Ashkenazi chief rabbi of Palestine. It was Rosh Hashana in the 1920s, or maybe even in the early 1930s, just before Rav Kook passed away. Whichever shul he was davening in Yerushalayim, there was a major construction project underway nearby. And it was behind schedule. They were trying to build a Hebrew state. So they were working around the clock. They were definitely working 7 days a week. Now, some of the early builders of the modern state of Israel, not sure if you know this part of history, didn't pay as much attention to Shabbos and Yom Tov as others did. Or maybe even Dafka, they sent workers to continue the project on Rosh Hashana. So Rav Kook did not send a protest over to the worksite to carry signs and march and all that. He sent one guy, one emissary with a shofar. This emissary got the attention of the workers, got everybody's attention, and he said very calmly, very politely, he said he was sent over by Rav Kook to extend holiday greetings to everyone there and wish them a happy and healthy new year. And if they would just pause for a few seconds, he would like to blow the shofar for them so that they could enjoy that mitzvah of the day. All the workers, all the Jewish workers stopped working to hear what this man in his religious holiday garb had to say to them, and they all stood still while he sounded the shofar for them. There were such tears that burst forth from these workers. A few of them asked, could they come back and pray the rest of Rosh Hashana with this emissary and with Rav Kook in his shtibel? But all of them decided to walk off the job and discontinue working on Rosh Hashana. A kind word, a heartfelt wish, and the sound of the shofar touched the deepest essence and the soul of those ostensibly secular Jews. So in most years, we think about matters of the soul and the spirit. We think about what kind of people we've been in the year that just came to a close and what kind of people we'd like to be in the year that's beginning. We make good resolutions. We talk about the book of life, and with humility and contrition, we implore God to inscribe us and then to seal us in that book of life for good things. We tremble a little bit with Unasana Toikef when the Chazan sings, and we imagine the scene as a shepherd's searching gaze meets his flock as he passes each sheep under his rod. So you too pass yours, and you count and number and regard the soul of every living thing. On Rosh Hashana it's written, on Yom Kippur it's sealed, Rosh Hashana. Lose control there a little bit. Who will rest, who will wander, who will be calm and who will be harassed, who will be at ease and who will suffer, who will become poor and who will grow rich. And then the day after Rosh Hashana, like in all probability, the day before Rosh Hashana, we go right back to business as usual. Lefum tsara agra, they say, whatever you put in is what you get out. What you see is what you get. There's no free lunch. You have to pay the piper. All those platitudes add up to the conclusion that our fate is in our own hands. We control our destiny. We have to get back to work because the system rewards those who work the hardest. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. We're the masters of our own destiny. Friends, if this year, or at least this last half a year in particular, has taught us anything, it's that we are not as in charge as we thought we were at this time last year. We figured, okay, we'll daven, we'll listen to the shofar, maybe we'll listen to the sermon a bit, we'll try to stay awake. But really, the day after Yom Tov, got to get back to work, because that's really where it's at. I think we see from this year's turn of history that that's not entirely where it's at. Now, many or even most of us are very, very fortunate. We are either retired or working in industries in the upper echelons of society that allowed us just to switch gears from working remotely, working on site, traveling, working in the office, to working remotely from home via internet. Number one. Number two, we have internet at home. So it was a question of downloading Zoom and getting on with our lives. Not so with the many, many people who work in the restaurant and hospitality and travel and tourism industries, in manufacturing and retailing, real estate, and so many other parts of the economy that were devastated, if not destroyed, by the lockdown and the quarantine. We are far from out of the woods yet. As the teachers return to school with anxiety and nerves, we brace ourselves for what's coming next. Who knows what's around the corner with the next wave, with subsequent waves. We're back to trying to be grateful for the small things in life, that the darkness rolls away to make the light visible in the morning, that the daylight gives way to evening so we can sleep, but we're not sleeping well, some of us. The most basic things about life were not to be taken for granted. Seeing friends, seeing family, grocery shopping, a hug, or a handshake. We're all wondering what those things will look like in the months and years to come. There's a whole school of thought amongst rabbis, and I'm sure amongst the wider world of clergy. They're all ready to explain to you that everything happened because God is angry at us for talking when we should be davening, or some other sin du jour, or whatever they're upset about at the moment. I'm not from that school of thought. I'm not here to harangue anyone or explain exactly what God is or isn't angry about. I just wish I knew how they're so sure of themselves. That's not the God I know, that's for sure. The God I do know gave us a wonderful array of tools, though, for navigating life, however it comes at us, and whatever it throws in our way. And those tools of prayer and faith and trust and humility and a transcendent vision are not, I'm certain of it, are not just for special occasions like Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. They're for every day of the year and every night, for us to recognize with humility and with awe that even the things that we think we're in control of, we're really not so in control of. And the house of cards can collapse at any minute, as it did 6 or 7 months ago. Now 750,000 people around the world have succumbed, Rahman al-Atzlan, to this illness, and much of the global economy is in tatters. And we have no idea if we're over the hump or if the worst is yet to come still. If anything, the lesson from 100 years ago is that it ain't over until it's over. So our confidence in being able to shape and control the situation is bakesa, it's concealed. Our faith in the promise of the future is bakesa, it's concealed. Our routine of spending a few days here in Shul of awe and trembling before God, then heading back to the office, it's concealed. Because even at Shul, even in the office, even in between, we have to wear masks, and we have to sanitize our hands obsessively and avoid contact and avoid this and avoid that. And even then, we're anxious and we're nervous that it won't help, and we'll still be spending almost all of our time behind our own closed door in our bubble, hoping to stave off a predator that's also bakesa, by the way. It's also concealed, and we can't even figure out what makes it tick or how to make it stop ticking and threatening us, and so much of what's comfortable and calm in our lives. This is the time to elevate and carry with us into every day of the new year the words we say with such fervor and emotion on the days of Teshuvah, tefillah, tzedakah, and bring those out of concealment every day of the year. Teshuvah is to return to who we really are, not what others think we should be. To look deeply into ourselves and bring to the surface the essence, the deepest part of our souls, and live with it every day. Tefillah, to pray, not just to ask or to get, but to connect. To connect ourselves with the source of life. To come to shul and pray together with the community. And we know that when a community prays, the divine presence is among us. And when we're not able to come to shul for any number of reasons, also to recognize that prayer is a connection. And tzedakah, because we know, and we've always known, but it was a bit concealed, that the basis of our worth is not what we have, it's what we give. A few financial crises ago, 2 or 3 or 4, there was a story of a man who was on top of the world until he wasn't. He lost it all in one downturn of the markets, or whatever industry he was captain of. After the fall, he used to drive over to the part of town, I think this was in Florida. He drove over and parked near where the school stood that he had given the money to build in his days of being flush with cash. He sponsored the building of the school building for children, the yeshiva, and he put his parents' name on the building. So he would go in the afternoon and watch the kids pour out into the street at the end of the school day and feel good about what he had done. He once told a friend, everything I had, I lost. Everything I gave away, I'll have it forever. Think about that. Everything I had, I lost. But everything I gave away, I'll have forever. Most years we work a little bit to summon up feelings of uncertainty, but deep down we know that after the holidays, life will settle right back into normal. I'm not sure any of us is confident this Rosh Hashana that things will be back to normal, if ever, and even what that would look like. Maybe we forgot what normal is supposed to be. This Rosh Hashana, above all others, we are very well attuned to Bakesa, that part of today, tomorrow, and the future that is concealed. We hope, we pray, we trust, we believe that God will make it, and God will make it good for us. We're quite a versatile and adaptable people, right? Good and creative at finding a way to keep on keeping on. So may God give us all the strength and the insight and the patience and dedication to keep on. And may we all be sealed in the book of life for a happy and healthy and sweet year. Gemar Chasima Tova.